So I've got the magic bullet to take your amateur sounding mixes and make them sound professional. Lean in quick. Let me tell you. Finish more mixes. Now, while that does hold some merit as we're continuing to hone our craft, you do advance and get better over time. But today we're going to talk about 4 specific tips to take your current mixes now and help improve them and make them sound more professional. So tip number 1 is don't overcrowd your low end. Now, it seems pretty simple enough to think we don't want something to sound muddy. We don't want things too boomy within our mix. But a lot of times we're also searching for that perfect tone, especially when it comes to guitar. A lot of times when it comes to vocal. But there's a simple thing that we need to realize and remember is let your bass and let your kick do its job. They are there to occupy that low end, and you can have them work in tandem to fill out that space and make it really rich without muddying things up with other instruments. Now, what am I talking about? Let's take a look and hop into Studio One. So inside Studio One, I have a session pulled up for one of my songs here, and this is Let Go off of the EP that I had put out. Now, we have a full drum set. We have a couple of electric guitars, acoustics, bass, vocals, background vocals, a mandolin. There's a lot going on here, but let's take a listen to drums and bass together. Now, you can tell we have a really great blend for everything in that low end that's happening. The kick is sounding really full and punchy. The bass is kind of fitting into place with that as well. Nothing's overpowering each other. But if we start to add some electrics in here, that's where we can start to muddy things up. If we take a look at just the EQ I have for the main electric guitar track here, you can see I have cut everything out, sloping down around 131 hertz. So all this information, nothing's happening. We're not getting that. Even with the mids, I've scooped that out a little bit and brought up some of the high mids as well. Now, I've even taken out some of the highs. So, I mean, if we listen back to everything, and we're going to grab some headphones here and listen on headphones so we can get a better representation. So within the headphones, we can hear, I'm going to turn off this EQ, and we're going to add this guitar in, and we're going to take a listen to what that's doing right now. Hear the difference when I turn the EQ on. So you can hear right away that it is cleaning up the tune in itself. So if we pull up the vocal track here and look at the EQ we have going, again, 126 hertz, we're sloping down at a pretty big grade of 24 dB for the slope. And then if we look at our fat channel also, we're going around 110 hertz and dropping that another almost 4 dB, shelving that down even more. So let's listen, throwing the vocal in with the guitar and the drums and the bass, and we'll toggle that on and off as well. And you can hear, again, just how much information is there that we don't need in the mix.
Plan your moves just like a soldier attacking. You can never follow through. I see just where you're lacking.
Now, yes, we did boost some higher frequencies here. We have a slight mid cut, a slight high boost here on the EQ, and then on the fat channel we did boost a little bit of 4.8K, less than 2 decibels, and about almost 3 decibels on the high frequency shelf here, which I believe is around 12K. So we are giving a little bit more clarity and air to the performance, but we're cutting a lot of that low end out, which we don't need. Now, again, one thing I should say in this song in particular, we don't have any keyboards or synthesizers or anything like that, but keep an eye on those as well if you do use those frequently, because they can take up a lot of space down there, and we just want to make sure that it's not overbearing. Tip number 2, if everything is stereo, then nothing is stereo. Now, what I mean by that is if we're taking everything hard left and right, then essentially it would be the same as throwing everything up the middle. We're looking to create a space. We're looking to create some movement within what we're doing in our panning. So a lot of times when we think about this specifically, we think about the drums themselves. Now, there's kind of 2 methods to panning for drums. You have the audience perspective and you have the drummer perspective. What that means is setting up your panning on essentially how the drummer hears it from behind the drum kit to how the audience hears it in front of the drum kit. So, case in point, if we look in Studio One here, because I'm a drummer, I tend to always pan my drums drummer perspective because that's what sounds natural to me, and in my head I'm playing and I'm following what's happening. So I have my toms set up. If I have 3 toms, they're always, hard left, center, and hard right. If I only have 2, then they're hard left, hard right. My hi-hat, it's always off to the left. My overheads are always split. Some people even go as far as to slightly pan the snare over to the left-hand side from drummer perspective, because the snare is slightly off to the left-hand side for me. Now, here's the inverse of that. If you're panning to audience perspective, your hi-hat then would be on the right. Your rack tom would also be on the right. Your floor tom would now be on the left, as opposed to the opposite. If you would slightly pan your snare, it would be slightly off to the right. So there's different ways, depending on how you want to do it. Now, most people are comfortable listening to music in a specific way, and it sticks out to them. So going with the audience perspective panning could be a good thing. Like I said, for me, it's just personal preference. Because I'm a drummer, I always pan things in drummer perspective. Now, another thing to note is when you're panning things, commit to where you're panning them. There's so many times where a lot of people want to come in here. All right, well, we want this tom to be about 48 to the left, and this tom, it's not completely center, so we want to move it off a little bit here to the side. I get the rationale. I understand that's kind of what you hear in real life, but just commit. Hard left and right, it's going to give us the widest stereo spread we can get. It's going to give us more interesting things. When something's happening from left to right or vice versa, it's going to catch the ear, especially in this section. And we just played this section here where I kind of just come in with a little bit of a tom hit in between this phrasing that we're doing here, and then eventually I add a snare in with it as well. So hearing that hard left and hard right sounds more interesting than half and half, or 20% here and 10% here. It just makes things interesting. Tip number 3 is EQ your effects. When we're looking at the effects that we're using, a lot of times we're thinking specifically reverb or delay. Now, specifically with reverb and delay, I highly recommend that you come in with some EQ on there. I'll show you the difference. We're going to solo out my vocal.
You plan your moves just like a soldier attacking.
So you can hear there's a huge trail with this reverb. You know, the delay, not so much because it's a slapback delay, but we're still getting a little extra information than we need. And again, it's all about making the mix clean. It's all about letting those frequencies fall into place and home where they need to home, set up shop where they need to set up shop. So if we listen here, we will actually mute the slapback. So we're going to take slapback off. We're just going to listen to the reverb, and I'm going to put an EQ on here. In this, we're just taking off a ton of low end, decent amount of high end, and let's listen back to that now.
You can never follow through. I see just where you're lacking.
So you can hear the effect is still there, and honestly, we could probably at this point add some more of the effect into it because we've taken out a ton of information. And finally, tip number 4 is use a template. Some sort of template that you either set up or somebody else sets up for you. Now, if you're looking for a template to use specifically in Studio One, if you head to floodwaterstudios.com/template, put your email in, I'll send you the template absolutely for free. Everything that you've seen here in this video, this is my mix template. Everything is set up. The best thing about the template is it keeps you organized, so everything is exactly where you know it is, specifically by coloration. Now, colors can be modified to fit your specific taste or needs, but I know that red tracks are my drum tracks. I know that the blue is my bass. I know that this shade of green is my electrics. I know this is acoustics. Now, getting into auxiliary things, this song we have a mandolin, and I don't use mandolin a whole lot, so I know that this kind of tannish color is the mandolin for this specific tune, but you get the idea. You customize it to what works best for you, and honestly, just colors are colors. As long as everything's kind of grouped up together, you'll start to figure out and remember, oh yeah, this is this and this is that. Here you can see also we have folders for everything. Now within the folders, I can take all of my electric guitar tracks, I can highlight those, and I can take them and drop them inside the electric guitar folder here. So highlight over that, drop it in. Now with the folder, I can close it and open it. All my tracks are there. I close it. Now I can mix off of this electrics bus. Same thing with all the drums. Now the drums are already in their folder. I can close that, simplify things. Bass, I can get that down to the bass folder. Even if there's only one track, I recommend getting it in there so everything is more simplified. And then acoustics, so on and so forth. So I highly recommend getting that. You know, also with templates, your go-to effects are already set up. So what I mean by that is I use these specific effects on most sessions. I always have my room verb, plate verb, spring verb. I have a slapback delay, a quarter note analog delay, and a half note beat delay. Those are what has been working well for me recently. Going forward, they may change, but they will update with my template also, because whatever I use normally, whatever my go-to reverb is, that's what I want available right then and there. I hope these tips have helped. Let me know down in the comments if you are using any of these tips currently, or if you have any other advice for either new or seasoned mix engineers. I hope you guys have a great day. We'll catch you on the next one. Go record something. See ya.